Good morning. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Happy to have you guys here until 1 o'clock. That's Lucas Panzica and myself. 615-737-1045. Get in there if you want to on the phone lines. As soon as I said it, it started ringing. Some of you were anxious, I suppose. We're happy to have you. F&M Bank Chat, what do you mean it's not our phone line?
You are looking at something different.
Why am I looking at something different than the thing that's usually my phone line?
I don't know that.
Off to an excellent start. Well done, Luke. I love that. I love you getting in my ear right away and telling me in a way that nobody else can hear, just leaving me out to dry.
Something's wrong.
Something's not right with the phone lines. Excellent. We'll figure it out together. 615-737-1045. If you want to try and get through, we'll figure it out at some point, I suppose. There is always the F&M Bank Chat for you to interact as well. Titans, they're on the practice field a little later this afternoon. You'll hear from Mike Vrabel at 11 o'clock. You'll also hear from Ryan Tannehill in the noon hour before they start to make their preparations for the New Orleans Saints. Meanwhile, since we are now at the, basically the conclusion of the offseason, even though I know the offseason technically ended when training camp and stuff like that started, now that we have a 53-man roster, now that it's week one, now that it looks like a more finalized product that we expect to see taking the field against the Saints, how would you evaluate the job that the new general manager has done? We put together a checklist. We also put it out on a poll on Twitter. At Buck Rising is where you vote on these things. How would you grade the job that Ran Carthon has done now that we're through roster cuts, now that the regular season is officially upon us? Because now his job, is looking forward to next offseason, next draft, next free agency cycle, quarterback contracts, figuring out Derrick Henry's situation. We are at a good stopping point to reassess. Have you ever seen the movie Don't Look Up? With
yeah, good movie.
Really good movie. I'd seen it when it first came out, and then for whatever reason decided to watch it again over the weekend.
Really? I feel like it's a taxing movie to watch. It's a good movie, but it's one of those that when you finish watching, you're like exhausted. Because it takes you through a lot.
It does, and it's long, but that one was worth it. You also went to see a movie like that this weekend.
Oppenheimer also very mentally exhausted.
But anyway, it reminds me of the scene. No, I guess spoiler alerts. It's been out for almost a year, it feels like. Meryl Streep as the president, and they're telling her about the meteor that they've discovered that's about to hit planet Earth, and they're sitting in the Oval Office. They've been waiting a day and a half to get in there. They're telling her that there is a 100%. Scientists don't say 100%, but they're saying there's a 100% that this meteor is going to make contact with planet Earth. It's an extinction-level event. And what does Meryl Streep say? I think we're going to sit tight and assess.
That's right. Sit tight and assess.
So now is our time. A little less on the line, a little less stakes. But now is our time to sit tight and assess as we get ready for Sunday afternoon's football game and to take a look at the job that Ran Carthon has done.
So should we do this? Should we sit tight and assess and give a grade today, an official preseason grade? And then sit tight and assess it again at the conclusion of the regular season?
Oh, my God, you content machine.
And
Look at you.
To see how it changes, because obviously the job Ran Carthon has done to this point will be determined by the outcome on the field, not by what we sit here and judge a few days after the 53-man roster has been named.
Don't ruin the exercise before we begin the exercise.
I'm simply making a proposal.
Your proposal has been heard. I'm willing to go down that road with you. I'm willing to do so. But I do think that it's worth taking a look at the offseason and figuring out, all right, where are we now? It's the best question that I've got anytime we do an interview. Where are we now with any particular situation? And with Ran Carthon heading into a season, running this organization from it's always an interesting scenario when a general manager comes in and retains as much of the previous GM staff as this one did. And it's not like it's uncommon, but, you're basically running somebody else's draft with somebody else's scouts, and you make the necessary adjustments, the immediate adjustments that you need before you really get your feet under you in your first season. And so with the draft needs that they had, with the roster needs that they had, the construction that was necessary, where are we putting at the top of the checklist for Ran Carthon jobs that he needed to get done when he got to this job in January versus where we are now? It's the offensive line. How would you assess the job that Ran Carthon has done putting together the offensive line? Now, remember, after the bulk of the free agency period is when Nicholas Petit-Frere's suspension came down. So they had to adjust to that on the fly. Chris Hubbard is now your starting right tackle for the time being. I don't know if they plan to sit tight and assess at the right tackle position throughout the course of the season, but right now the plan is Hubbard. So from left to right, Andre Dillard, Peter Skoronski, first-round pick, Aaron Brewer, the only returning starter, but he's playing a different position this year. You then have Daniel Brunskill, a free agent, and Chris Hubbard, who was brought in, the start of camp, a little before camp?
Brunskill or Hubbard?
Hubbard.
Yes.
That's the offensive line situation. NPF on the shelf for 6 weeks. Depth, still suspect, but there's only so much work that they could do. How would we assess the job that Ran Carthon did with the offensive line group this offseason? We've seen them in preseason. No, I don't think it's as difficult as you want to make it.
I think this is difficult because we talk a lot about the demand for quality offensive line play across the league, how it is not in a good spot at a lot of places. It's at a premium, should we say. Quality offensive line play and depth is at a premium across the NFL. So do we grade on a curve based on how difficult a task it is to completely rebuild a unit in one offseason?
Yeah, you do.
And by the way, this should be evaluating Ran and Vrabel, right? Like when we say this should be if they're going to talk about collaboration, then we can't just leave Vrabel out in these discussions.
And at least in year one, Ran is not doing anything that Mike isn't on board with. So, and that there's always going to be disagreements in these situations, and they've spoken to this before as well. Like any productive working relationship, you're going to have things you disagree on. You find compromise. You make the decision that's best for everybody moving forward. At least in a perfect world, you do. So, yes, Mike Vrabel is absolutely a part of this evaluation process. Offensive line-wise, I think you do account for the degree of difficulty that they were up against. You do account for the financial situation that they were in because they had a bunch of cap-clearing moves. One of them involved getting rid of an offensive lineman who was not reliable as of late. His body kept betraying him, and they had to move on, but was, when healthy, Taylor Lewan has been the best option at left tackle that this team has had in quite some time. They had to move on from a pretty big piece there. It's not an easy thing to do.
And you have to account for the scarcity of options.
People don't let these guys, offensive linemen, quality offensive linemen, hit free agency. Rarely does that happen. So if we're going on a grading scale, the traditional grading scale A through F, before they've played a regular season game, but having seen them play a fair amount in the preseason to kind of get a grasp on where we are, I think that I am comfortable with a C+, and I am willing to be talked into a B-.
I would go B- because I think the Skoronski pick would elevate that.
He has the potential to do so, and he is the thing that you feel the best about, probably, while also understanding that he's a rookie. And Cam Jordan is probably going to make him look like a rookie a few times or two on Sunday afternoon. And he's had the opportunity to go up against Jeff and Danico and Tart, and that's as good of work as one can have in practice preparing for the rigors of an NFL season, playing a new position, but there's still going to be moments when he looks like a rookie, and that's okay. They are going to be the thing that we scrutinize most all regular season long, right? It was the thing that was the biggest talking point coming out of 2022. It's the thing that was the biggest talking point heading into the offseason. It maintains its status as the greatest question mark that we have on the roster now that they have Nick Folk at the kicker situation and, that TBD. But the offensive line is going to be a discussion point, much like DeAndre Hopkins, for example, who we'll get to, all year long. Good, bad, right, wrong, indifferent.
I think offensive line should be 1A as a talking point throughout the offseason. Or when you bridge 2022 to 2023.
So much of what they're trying to accomplish hinges on that group being just somewhat improved. Average.
Yeah.
Average is all that anybody is asking for.
What did we talk about more this offseason? The offensive line or the wide receiver group?
A wide receiver. I mean, I'd say wide receiver because even after they signed Hopkins, we were still talking wide receivers.
Which is a sexier thing to talk about and an easier thing to talk about, especially for fans.
Bigger headline.
But if we're talking about talking points and just viewing it in that lens, wide receiver was right up there with the offensive line.
Mm-hmm. Oh, no. I mean, pre-Hopkins, that's a disaster. That's negligible.
It really went from 0 to 100 with how people feel about this wide receiver room.
Well, he is still a high-level player. It's not Julio and the hamstrings are literally fraying in front of you. It's not A.J. Brown who's in a situation, looks to be ascending, gets in a contract dispute, and shoots his way out of here, right? It's as reliable and sound an option as you've had, a high-level option as you've had on this roster at any point in time. And he's been as advertised. Now, so was Kyle Phillips in practice, by the way. And for all the good that did you, because you see him try to field one punt in a preseason game, and then he's done for a period of at least 4 weeks. So I understand why, as advertised from our perspective, may not be a selling point for you just yet. But I do have, and I think anybody who's been at Titans practice, whether they're coming in for the week, stopping by for a day, or have been out there for the past month and a half the way that Lucas and I have, I think anybody would back up that point, having seen DeAndre Hopkins at work so far. But we'll start with the offensive line. We'll continue to talk about this. Offseason passes and fails for the Titans to accomplish. Lucas has an area where he feels like they came up a little bit short. We'll also discuss some NFL rebound candidates in 2023. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back to the show. 615-737-1045. I can give out the phone number now, and it works. So apparently the phone lines
They
were
were working fine.
They were working fine.
It's just your screen in front of you was something different.
Okay. Well, I was seeing.
Yeah, nobody was calling you. Don't worry. Nobody was calling in.
I was seeing phone calls from 92Q. Now, if I'd have hit the button, would I have gotten the calls from 92Q on the air here? Would that have been possible? Because I think that would have been laugh out loud funny.
I'm not smart enough to know if that would have been possible.
Well, we're barely smart enough to get this thing on the air every day, but we find a way to win. Either way, we are talking about the offseason, the job that Rand Carthon had in front of him. Not a finished product, obviously. They'll have to continue to make adjustments to the roster throughout the course of the year, but we have a 53, so it's worth talking about. And we start with the offensive line. Lucas is willing to go to a B-. Up to B- is your hard grade there, or are you grading on a curve?
Bit of a curve.
Okay.
Just because of the difficulty of addressing that position in the current landscape.
I agree. So then from offensive line, we would say that, many of you might argue that the wide receiver position was the most important thing to figure out this offseason, not named offensive line. I would argue the quarterback situation was vastly more important. So as you look at the way that Rand Carthon has addressed the quarterback situation, what do we know? We know that Ryan Tannehill was somebody that they made an effort to get on board immediately and to make him understand that he was their quarterback for this season. They had Malik Willis on the roster, drafted by a previous administration. They clearly have not given up on Malik Willis. He is still on the 53-man roster. They drafted Will Levis in the second round. They tried to trade up in the first to get him. They couldn't get back up into the first. Levis ended up falling to the second anyway. They got him at 33rd overall. He is now the third-string quarterback. All three are on the active roster.
Is he?
Well, that's a good point.
How are you going to just say that definitively?
I shouldn't.
How many segments have we made of the Titans won't name a backup quarterback?
2. At least 2. So, we don't know that he's the third-string quarterback today.
Even their depth chart this week stayed away from it.
We got hit with an or. Now, Adam Schefter, you've seen a depth chart with an or in the NFL. It's the Titans quarterback situation.
A couple of those around the NFL.
All right. So, you have the quarterback situation. You don't know which one of them is the backup. You have Mike Vrabel saying at the podium on Monday, it's going to be game plan specific. So I guess they're not assigning a second and third string quarterback for the duration of the year, which is fine. They don't have to. I mean, think about this. They could go the entire season without telling us who the primary backup for Ryan Tannehill is. We could get into next offseason where it's just Malik Willis and Will Levis on the roster in theory, and they could not tell us who is in the driver's spot. Like we could go another calendar year.
If that happens, that would be a very good thing for Titans fans because that would mean Ryan Tannehill gets through the entire 2023 season healthy. And we don't even have the opportunity to find out.
Yes. I think that is the thing that all of you should be rooting for.
Yeah.
Is that you don't have to see either of them.
Yeah. If you don't know who in the world your backup is in February, it's a good thing. It means you were healthy this year at quarterback.
So, how would we say that Rand Carthon did in addressing the quarterback situation this year? Now, if we're going to grade on a curve for the offensive line, I do think there should be a curve implemented for Rand's sake and Vrabel's sake for the fact that they won't name a backup specifically. That should be taken into account. But Ryan Tannehill kept under contract, didn't have to mess with his contract, didn't have to extend him. You're in a place where you can let that dude walk if everything goes to plan. Now everything has to go to plan, and that's not always as clean as people may want to make it. But right now, Ryan Tannehill is set to go through the 2023 season as the starter and then walk away from this franchise at the end of the year. Malik Willis and Will Levis are in this nebulous backup situation. Will Levis hasn't played in the preseason hardly at all, but Malik Willis is still very much a work in progress. How much more a work in progress Malik is than Levis, if at all, we don't know because we haven't seen much more of them than what Levis has done in practice a couple of days after the preseason concluded. I think that with at least options behind Tannehill and the imperfect science that drafting is, much less the quarterback draft, I like the fact that they didn't give up on Malik Willis. I personally, selfishly, I would like to know who their primary backup is. If Malik didn't earn the job, I would like to know. Maybe they don't want to have that out there publicly, but if he didn't earn it outright, I would like to know why.
Malik.
Yes.
The thing is, if he didn't earn it, then what did Levis do to earn it? Right?
Which is the conversation that we've had before about
Did nobody earn it?
That's my thing. How are you structuring this? And they may have an answer to this that they're just not willing to divulge, which is a common theme around this. So I don't want to put out a bunch of theories around this and be like, I don't know what the hell they're doing. But it does seem difficult for me to go through the post-draft press conference to be told that there's a specific order that these quarterbacks are stacked in, so should a depth chart come out, and then to be told after the fact, after a full training camp, rookie minicamp, OTAs, voluntary stuff, and everything that leads up to week one, that there's not enough information now when you should have the most information possible to make a decision that would tier these quarterbacks in a way that you can just give them defined roles and let everybody move on with their lives. And if you got to split them up on a week-to-week basis with scout team quarterbacks for who you're game planning for that week, that's fine. That's fine. But I think it's okay to let people know. So I think that the backup quarterback situation, the quarterback situation, including Ryan Tannehill, I'm of a solid B+. Solid B+ for Rand Carthon this offseason. I like that Tannehill's still here. He's their best advantage to win. I like that they didn't give up. I know that some of you want them to tank. I have zero interest in it, not just because I would have to cover it, but because that's a waste of a football season for everybody. Coaches, players, fans, media, everybody. Nobody wants the tank, even if you do think you want the tank. So I think that with that in mind and with that level of competitiveness in mind, and that they've given themselves more options than less at that position, it's a very important position for them to nail down. What happens with Levis and Willis, we'll see. But right now, B+.
Yeah, I'd go B. You sacrificed having an experienced, reliable veteran backup quarterback in the name of having your guy for the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people would take that. Even if you didn't agree with the Levis pick, you identified somebody you liked that you thought was a fit, went up and got him, and he's in place as your guy for the future. Is he going to give you the best chance to win as a backup quarterback behind Tannehill this year? We don't know that. But I think most people would take that. They would take that as opposed to passing on a quarterback that you feel can be the future of the franchise and just going and getting Blaine Gabbert, right?
Oh my God, no! Please,
bad example.
Please, no. Wait, not Blaine. Blaine, not a bad example.
Yeah,
he got that backup job, by the way.
Quarterback.
Your boy Buechele out on the streets.
Oh, really? Gabbert's the backup in KC.
Mm-hmm. So Tyler Dial in the F&M Bank chat asks a good question. What could have made it an A? If I'm willing to give a B+, why am I not willing to say A-? Because Tannehill, they have looked to upgrade from Tannehill. In each of the last two off seasons, they have not successfully done so. Now, I know that Rand Carthon only has one off season, and I just cited two. But there has been a plan in place, or at least an interest in trying to move on from Ryan Tannehill. They've not been able to successfully do so.
In what way did they try to upgrade from Tannehill this offseason?
This offseason?
Yes.
Well, they've explored the quarterback situation. They drafted a replacement for him. They were discussing heavily the idea of trading up to get a future quarterback that was beyond Will Levis.
Yeah, that is addressing the future. I don't see that as up trying to upgrade over Ryan Tannehill in the short term.
Upgrading the circumstance. I'm not saying the talent level, and it's a good clarification. His contract is super expensive. His contract is something that hinders you this offseason. If you can find a way to get out from the bulk of the contract and get a solution that's feasible, like had they done a really, really hard thing, which is to move Ryan Tannehill, put themselves in a position to draft a higher caliber quarterback, whether that's Stroud, Richardson, whomever, and put themselves in a position to have more money on the books this year, make it a more competitive roster this year. I'm talking about a really, really heavy lift. All right, like B+ is a good grade. That's as high as I'm willing to go. Like anything in the A range, you've already found your solution at quarterback for the foreseeable future, not just this kind of purgatory that Ryan Tannehill's in. It's not a bad thing. I think it's a great thing if you're trying to bridge this gap. Ryan Tannehill's a perfectly fine bridge quarterback to keep you competitive enough and set you up for the future. But I think in a perfect world, you would have found a way to move out from under that contract, found a better quarterback, and found more draft assets to get that quarterback and set yourself up for a more expedited retooling, rebuild, whatever. Again, not that it was even feasible. It may not have been feasible.
That's my thing. I don't getting out of Tannehill in the final year of that contract and getting somebody to take that on to find a better quarterback in the short term. Like, who are we talking about? Who's the better quarterback in the short term for 2023 that the Titans could have brought in?
I'm not saying that there's a better quarterback. I mean, you could argue. People would have argued Derek Carr. People could have argued Derek Carr. He's still got more money. Like, there's C.J. Stroud is not a better quarterback. What I'm saying is the better situation to expedite where you're trying to go with a higher level talent at quarterback than Will Levis. C.J. Stroud is the example that a lot of people are going to use because we know that they loved him. Right? And we know that they were very interested in going up to get him, and they got sandbagged by the Texans in a situation that really would have made it hard for them to get up there anyway because of the draft capital that the Texans had to immediately move, not just to do the second overall pick, but to get right back up there to 3. So like I'm saying, it would have been damn near impossible, but that's what I'm saying is going to give me an A. B+ is as high as I'm willing to go. I think they did as good a job as they could have done, but that still to me is a B+ because it's a B+ quarterback situation. They don't have an A+. They don't have an A quarterback situation. Ryan Tannehill is a functional quarterback. He is a quarterback that I have questions about in the postseason. That's the only way that he's going to be able to answer. I mean, that's really the only thing that he needs to answer for me. I think that he is a high-level regular season quarterback and that he can take them where they want to go. I think you're totally capable of getting to a Super Bowl with Ryan Tannehill as a quarterback. But is their quarterback room right now an A situation? I don't think anybody would argue that. Do you have a different position?
No, I don't think anybody would argue that. I'm with you on that.
Okay.
I guess the question is how much of a curve are we grading on with all of these, right? Because I just don't see a feasible scenario where you could have moved on from Tannehill and tangibly upgraded at quarterback. Like, we can debate Derek Carr, but I think most of us were on the same page, right? That is that really an upgrade?
I don't think Derek Carr is an upgrade.
Right. So, especially in this system.
I don't think Garoppolo's an upgrade.
Yeah.
The quarterbacks that were out there to be had this offseason, like, what I'm saying is a damn near impossible situation to pull off. But many of you would have argued that Hopkins was an impossible situation to pull off.
Like, it might be a fantasy football upgrade, right? Derek Carr over Ryan Tannehill. But with this team and this fit and this scheme.
I don't even think it's a fantasy football upgrade. I think Tannehill runs more.
Does he?
Not anymore.
Not really, man.
Less.
Like, show me Tannehill's rushing numbers over the last couple of years.
Oh, I'm not saying, like, he's not going to have a Lamar Jackson 57-yarder. Although he did in Green Bay a couple of years ago in the game that they just got their asses kicked in the snow.
2020, yes.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he doesn't have the ability.
But, like, I mean, you can't tell me that he doesn't utilize his legs when he's setting back-to-back career highs in rushing touchdowns in, 2020 and 2021? Like, so he does utilize his legs. I'm not saying, they're not running read option stuff with Derek Carr. 615-737-1045 is the number if you want to join the conversation. We'd be happy to have you. We're assessing the offseason that the Titans have had now heading into week 1 in New Orleans. We've talked about the offensive line. We've talked about the quarterback situation. Now to the wide receivers. So DeAndre Hopkins is a late add, but he's on the roster, and it makes you feel a hell of a lot better than you did prior to his acquisition. Prior to his acquisition, the best thing that you had to boast about what you brought in was Chris Moore. Chris Moore, the former 4th-round pick, the journeyman, the guy who had struggled to latch on as a wide receiver anywhere prior to Houston last year, been a special teamer for the vast majority of his career. He's 30 years old. You drafted Colton Dowell in the 7th round. You have now an undrafted rookie free agent who's made the roster in Kearis Jackson. You have Kyle Phillips on injured reserve to start the season. And Treylon Burks trending. We'll find out more today. We get our first injury report today. So I'm sure that'll send people into a spiral. But the first injury report today of the season. I expect things to trend in a positive direction for Treylon Burks, based on everything that we're hearing, based on everything that we've seen in the last week. He was out there at practice, no brace, no limitations, looked fine. So with all the things that they did in the wide receiver core right now, with that being the third most important thing, however you want to stack these things, I think offensive line, quarterback, wide receiver is a pretty good order to go in. I would say that the job that they did, if for no other reason than DeAndre Hopkins, I think that's probably the only A grade that I'm willing to give out.
Yep. Was that not best case scenario?
Best case scenario.
Even if the route to get to that point, you could say it was a little bit fortunate, right? Like there's no way the Titans could have predicted that situation would have played out the way that it did.
They seem to be super confident at the end of the draft when they're telling us.
They did.
When they're sitting there saying, I mean, Mike was not shy about, for Monday, it's fine.
But at that point, DeAndre Hopkins was still an Arizona Cardinal.
He was still under contract.
And even if he wasn't, you had no idea who was going to be the highest bidder. That's something that would have been out of the Titans' control. So I think they were a little bit fortunate in landing D-Hop, but it was best case scenario, and it probably does deserve an A.
A lot of this stuff involves luck. Roll
the dice, play the board.
And you know what? Like, that comment doesn't bite him in the ass, right? He's clear from that because they rolled the dice, they played the board, and they came up aces. Like with DeAndre Hopkins, even though he's in his 30s, even though he's not peak D-Hop, even though he's not a super explosive, straight line speed type of player, he's still one of the best. I would argue he's still a top 10 to 12 wide receiver in professional football, and he's as good as an option as you've had since you let A.J. Brown kind of bust the door down, right? A.J. is the ideal scenario, and you can say, oh, well, that's just the Titans. They let A.J. Brown go just to bend over backwards to get an aging DeAndre Hopkins, and that's fine. But this is not Rand Carthon's mistake. It was Rand Carthon's mess to clean up, and he did so in about as good a way as you could possibly find this offseason. The free agent market was awful. Juju Smith-Schuster was probably, arguably, the best wide receiver out there. If you want to argue Jacoby Myers, you can do that. Good luck and God bless.
Who would you rather have on your football team?
Lucas wanted DeMarcus Robinson. He would have taken DeMarcus Robinson over 10 DeAndre Hopkins.
Stop. That's when that was bottom of the barrel stuff that we were talking about.
You wanted DeMarcus Robinson on this roster more than air.
I wanted someone on this roster.
Well, you got one. 615-737-1045 is the number. Brent in Franklin is next. Hey, Brent.
Hey, I got a question for you, Buck.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just think positively and think that with D-Hop and Burks healthy and, if the King comes back strong, the offensive line is pretty good, Tannehill could have a fabulous year. He's capable.
Yes.
So, he does. And let's say he has a great year, does well in the playoffs, then what do? Do you still get rid of him? That's my question. Thanks.
I appreciate the call, Brent. I don't want to run over SEC observations, but I'll answer it here. I don't want to make this a blanket statement. I think if he has a fantastic season, I still think you let him walk. I think that there's enough of a sample size. If you trust your coaching, to put Levis or Willis, whomever it is, in a position to succeed, the value of a rookie quarterback contract is such that it is better to sell high on Ryan Tannehill if he comes through with flying colors this year and move on to the next era of this thing. Otherwise, you're just dragging it down the road. And I know you have the money to pay him again, but have you seen the quarterback numbers now as opposed to when Ryan Tannehill did that deal in 2020, even with the restructure? How much bigger the quarterback money has gotten? Derek Carr is not somebody that I think a lot of you would have wanted to pay the money that Derek Carr ended up getting paid. I'm of the belief that, we'll see how this year goes. And again, that's pending promise in Levis or Willis that we don't yet have concrete evidence of. But I would still think that the value of the rookie quarterback contract is such that you can try and build the best possible roster around him and not have to, strap yourself to a quarterback contract like Tannehill's for another, let's say, 1 to 2 years. We'll keep taking your phone calls on Titans and Saints throughout the course of the day. We'll take a brief pause, though, on some NFL stuff to do some SEC observations next. Football, college football back in our lives, the SEC back in our lives. It's going to give the SEC observations a little more meaning. Hit it.
Why don't we break this down a little bit? Let's freshen this up and go a cappella.
Let's talk about SEC, baby. Let's talk about the SEC. Let's talk about Nick Saban and Josh Heupel in the SEC. Let's talk about SEC, baby. Let's talk about the SEC. Let's talk about Greg Sankey and Brian Kelly in the SEC. Let's talk about SEC. Let's talk about SEC. Let's talk about SEC.
The SEC observations for today. I love him doing it multiple times at the end. Just got to get it right. Got to get it right for the final product.
I don't ever know when he's back there, and it drives me insane.
You think that was live?
Isn't it?
No, he's not here. That was from that's the raw file from when he made it the first time.
No.
Yeah, because he recorded himself doing it, and then he pulled the music from the original song.
Well, it's better than last time when you just played the damn song and you had to have the awkward exchange with me about let's do sex facts.
So a cappella version of Talk About Sec. Let's talk about
That
debuts.
is such a terrible way to start this segment.
Let's talk about debuts. So a few quarterbacks having their SEC starting debut in week 1 on Saturday. I'm going to include Jalen Milroe in this, even though I know he started against Texas A&M last season, but I think it's appropriate to include him in this after the battle that was between the 3 Alabama quarterbacks all offseason. So Carson Beck for Georgia in a blowout win over UT Martin, 21 of 31, 294 yards, a touchdown, and a rushing score. Jalen Milroe for Alabama, 13 of 18, 194 yards, 3 passing touchdowns to go with 2 rushing touchdowns and 48 yards. Devin Leary, 18 of 31, 241 yards, a touchdown and an interception in a runaway win against Ball State, which was a lot closer for a lot longer than Kentucky fans would have wanted. That game was on at the same time as the Tennessee UVA game, and Kentucky took a minute there to really pull away from Ball State in the second half. And then Peyton Thorne of Auburn, the Michigan State transfer, 10 of 17, 141 yards, and a touchdown. Auburn appears to be deploying a 2-quarterback system this year as Robbie Ashford comes in, getting the majority of goal line snaps. Ashford had 3 rushing touchdowns on the day. But my personal favorite debut across the SEC on Saturday was not a quarterback. It was Texas A&M offensive coordinator Bobby Petrino, who in his first time with play calling duties under Jimbo Fisher saw the Texas A&M offense rack up 411 total yards in a 52-10 win over New Mexico. I understand it's New Mexico. Can you tell me, Buck, the last time Texas A&M put up 50-plus on an FBS opponent in regulation?
I'll give you a year as a guess. Let's say 2019.
2018, the last time Texas A&M did that. For example, last year, Texas A&M opened up the season putting up 31 points on Sam Houston State. Near the end of the season, they only managed 20 points against lowly UMass. They couldn't score 52 combined in their 2 cupcake games a year ago. They win 52-10 against New Mexico. Connor Wegman, 18 of 23, 236 yards, 5 touchdowns, a career high. I know it's New Mexico. This is the most in control Connor Wegman has ever looked. I don't care who it was against. Texas A&M did things on offense that you just never saw from them at any point a year ago in 2022. Now, they play one of the more intriguing Week 2 games this week when they take on Miami. Fascinated to see what happens between A&M and Miami. Could be a good litmus test for both programs. But with all the quarterbacks that got action on Saturday, I still think Bobby Petrino had the best debut in the SEC in Week 1. And though it was against New Mexico, gave A&M fans reasons for optimism for the rest of the season when the majority of the offseason was kind of defined by Jimbo. Yeah, he's going to call the plays. I mean, he might call the plays. Well, it'll be a collaboration thing. He might call the plays. Why wouldn't he call the plays? Just making it as confusing as possible. I think that confusion is settled. Bobby Petrino looks to be in control of this A&M offense. That's a very good thing for Texas A&M fans.
I know that we kind of like Butch Jones, right? You don't want to root on anybody's downfall, but Jimbo's kind of funny to watch spiral a little bit. So I think a lot of us were going into the season saying, oh, can't wait to see what kind of drama arises between Jimbo Fisher and Petrino as they try and figure out this play calling situation where Jimbo doesn't seem that committed to the idea of letting Bobby have the play calling responsibilities. Now, it's 1 week. It's New Mexico, all of the qualifiers that Lucas just used. But I would say that if you are a Texas A&M fan and you're basically looking for a game where you can just check some boxes, right? That's what we did with Tennessee and Virginia. Just looking for a game where you can go in there, check a few boxes, kind of take the temperature of where your football team is at the start of the season, and do so in stride against a clearly inferior opponent. I think that's the kind of reassurance. It's 1 week sample size. We're not going to get too caught up in it. But it's a part of that gradual progress that I think you want to see.
Do have some news out of Knoxville as Josh Heupel was just on the SEC teleconference that it happens weekly on Wednesdays. Tennessee linebacker Keenan Peely will miss a couple of weeks, according to Heupel. He says he doesn't believe it's season ending at this point. That's a big blow to the Tennessee linebacking core. Keenan Peely, the BYU transfer that was set to start alongside Aaron Beasley, and that was going to be a big strength of this defense. And Peely had a nice outing against Virginia on Saturday. So looks like opportunity opening up for the talented freshman Arion Carter out of Smyrna High School.
People can't stop talking about.
Yeah, imagine we'll see a lot more of him this week against Austin Peay and moving forward for however long Peely is out. But that's a tough blow for this defense and for linebacker depth.
It's Saints week. Mike Vrabel is at the podium ahead of their first day of practice. You'll hear from him next.
It is 10:59. Good morning. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans will be on the practice field this afternoon, leading into week 1, kicking off at the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. Mike Vrabel meeting with the media at the podium as we speak at Ascension St. Thomas Sports Park. We will go that live here in just a moment. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second hour, Mike Vrabel's at the podium, Titans and Saints. You're going to hear from the head coach live. Let's head out there.
Need somebody. That particular group, Kevin's been here a while and has been consistent, in our defense and our secondary. Jeffrey, the impact that he makes, and then Aziz, being a guy that's come in, in the offseason through free agency and has really shown a propensity to be here every day, be locked in, communicate. Same thing offensively with Ryan and Derek, and then Brew. I would put him in kind of the category of Aziz, even though he's been here, but having that opportunity to try to lead that offensive line and help them.
What did you see out of Kears Jackson all through the preseason that gave you the confidence that he could handle the punt and kick return job?
I think at some point in time, Kears decided to be coached and to work each day and improve and change some behavior and learn multiple positions, and then also be consistent catching the football and taking advantage of his opportunities.
What did you have to say to him during his initial reluctance maybe to get him out of that mode?
Well, I mean, it's just it's not negative. I don't want to mean it as negative. It's just that guys that are conscientious, that show up, want to always do the right thing and understand that we understand that there's going to be mistakes, and maybe how they coached it at Georgia or how he learned it or how he thought it maybe wasn't in line with what we we're looking for. So again, it's just about not making excuses and just having accountability and saying, yep, that has to be better, or I see it, or whatever it may be. And he did a nice job.
Coach, you mentioned the challenge the Saints defense brings offensively, some new pieces, including their new quarterback, Derek Carr. How would you describe the challenge they present to your defense?
Well, I think that, obviously with Olave, Michael Thomas, two different receivers, one extremely quick, great route runner. Michael Thomas, is a great route runner in his own right, but it's just the physicality, the play strength that he has. Jawan Johnson, it's a veteran offensive line with a couple new pieces there, but for the most part, you look back a couple years and that's been the same group that it's been. Last time we played them a couple years ago. With the addition of Penning, they've got some tight ends and how they use Hill. We'll see what Derek Carr and how he operates, but when this offensive system that they've had in place for a while, when they are at their best, there's an urgency, there's a pace to it, and I don't mean no huddle, but there's an operation that's fast, that gets out of the huddle, that motions, that there's just when the ball's getting out of the hand of the quarterback and it's getting into the playmakers.
And how about a guy like Jawan Johnson maybe incorporating Taysom Hill a little bit too, just the way that they've done that in the past with their offense?
Well, we'll have to be ready for a lot of different things and have to get lined up and know who's in the football game and know where they're lined up at. Not only us and our communication, but finding out where they're at. So there'll be things that we'll have seen from tape, and there'll be things that we haven't seen.
We look at Marshawn Lattimore,
he's a guy, sometimes he'll travel, sometimes he plays side, whatever. But what is it that you feel makes him such an outstanding quarterback? Well, he's got talent. He's got competitiveness. He's got play strength, and he challenges. And, that's the thing. When when he gives up a play, he comes right back and, he gets lined up again and continues to challenge and come back at you. And, he can run, he can flip his hips, he can play off, he can play press. So there's a lot of different things that he can do, and he's done it for a lot of years.
Mike, what have you seen Tajay do to this point to earn the trust of coaches and teammates alike?
Well, I think there was a time in Minnesota where during practice Tajay stepped up and met a linebacker right in the hole. Just from the different looks that they gave us, and I pointed it out to the team, and the defensive guys were like, "Oh," you kind of hear him talking, and that was the reaction I kind of expected. When I showed the tape or the play to the team, and knowing that the offensive players would have seen it or had seen it, but the defensive players didn't. And I said that's the way that a young running back earns the respect of his teammates, is that they are able to protect the guy with the ball and not just do what they do with the ball. We've seen examples of him, making plays with the football in his hand, but it's how you play without the football that I think really guys appreciate, or certainly I appreciate.
When the offense was first being installed, the guys first got here, the word they were quickly using was tempo. They seemed surprised by the tempo, or that was the biggest adjustment for them. How much do you think that's kind of something now that's in the bag?
We've always tried to play with urgency. We've always tried to get to the line of scrimmage. We've always tried to have those things, and continue to make an emphasis on it. And I think that the more that you learn it, one, it allows you to play quicker, and maybe when you know something so well that you kind of take it for granted, right? So when you have this new learning, new terminology, the things that we've added, you're on high alert, you're on edge, and so maybe that's part of it. But I hope that we, since we've been here, never played lackadaisical, but maybe that's kind of what it is.
What have you seen from Tim?
Hey, buddy, I haven't heard from you in a while.
Oh, really? Yeah, welcome back.
Okay.
Oh, really? You sound surprised.
Has it been that long? I try to let Karski have more questions. But yeah, what have you seen from Tim in this role?
I mean, since he's been here, or I've been around Tim, there's been a great energy, a passion for teaching, a passion for explanation, finding new ways to teach, and that's been really cool seeing him and Justin and Charles work together, building plays, building terminology, building installation, and so hopefully it can all help our players. But I think Tim has a great relationship with the players, and he has the ability to push them, to challenge them, but also to teach them and explain to them.
In your travels around the league, is that arena one of the louder ones that you can remember visiting?
Yeah, I mean, any dome, and certainly opening week in New Orleans, and I mean, they have a passionate fan base, and anytime you play indoors, you have to be conscious of that, and certainly on opening week. And
how much does that factor into your preparation as far as that nonverbal contact that you have to have?
Well, it will be a large part of what we do. I mean, a large part of how we prepare, knowing that the road environment is something that we're going to have to handle early in the game based on the success that we have, and third down, making sure that we're in and out of the huddle, that we're quarterbacks putting the protection where he wants it, and then being able to adjust to it. And the line and punt team, showed the team this morning about Tampa last year, their second week of the season. Guys on the punt team are late reacting to the snap, and they get on a guy's edge on the right side there, and didn't get blocked, but it was a point that we made that even guys on the punt team have to have to be able to periff the ball and be able to get back and get set and not let those guys get on their edges. They come after punts and they come after field goals.
Mike, in your experience as a head coach, is there anything about getting your guys ready for week one that's different than getting them ready for any other week?
Just an emphasis on fundamentals, emphasis on, we can all say they're going to do this and they're going to do that and, pull stuff out of the sky, but really we don't know. We have no idea. We have to go down there and, play sound, play fundamentally sound, play with great effort. Being able to get back to center, they hit a play knowing, hey, whatever we see early, they're probably going to come back to later on and figure out if there's some wrinkles that we'll have to adjust to, and being great, recognizing things and, not trying to, say, hey, this is what they're going to do, because we may have an idea, even defensively, since there's been some consistency over the years, but they'll have some things that we haven't seen as well.
As a leader early, is that rare in your experience for somebody to be able to come into a veteran room and kind of establish as a leader early?
Well, I wouldn't say that the room that he came into was much. Yeah. I think it just depends on each player, and their personality, and the impact that they want to make, and how they fit into the entire room, which it's been a great addition.
How do you feel like Brewer has been taking command of that offensive line?
Again, I think that Brew's, the one thing that we've all been around Ben Jones, and Ben was here for a lot of years and made a unbelievable impact on our team and organization, but Brew had to try to lead differently than Ben. They're different people, different personalities, but have seen an energized and professionalism to them, and coming in early, extra meetings, his communication with the quarterback and the rest of the line has been where we wanted it to be.
This is a good litmus test for your defense, with all the emphasis on preventing X plays to go against two very good receivers and a quarterback like Carr, who's not shy about airing it out and putting balls downfield.
You said, is this a good test? Oh, sure. Yeah, we just have to make sure that we don't get the ball thrown over our head. We also have to make sure that you're, tackling it when they catch it. The guys can operate in space after the catch. Olave, if you don't break down or don't tackle him, can turn, and just like he did last year, against the Panthers, took it, an 8-yard pass and turned over his outside shoulder, and it was a 30-yard touchdown. So not only being great down the field, but also being able to come and tackle when those guys have it.
Feel good about your ability to rush the passer after training camp going into week one?
I hope so. We've invested a lot of resources there, so we better.
Will Arden practice?
Yeah, I would anticipate Arden being out there today at some capacity.
That's good. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you, guys.
That's Titans head coach Mike Vrabel at the podium, getting you ready for week one. Titans on the practice field a little later on. Christian Fulton going to join us tomorrow, as a matter of fact, at this very time. So we'll catch up with the Titans corner on a week one opponent in New Orleans and a hometown trip for the Fulton family. Should be a cool one. Now, we've been teasing this for a couple of days. It's the dumbest thing in sports this week. I've got one. Lucas and I are on the same page. 615-737-1045 is the number. You give us the dumbest thing in sports this week, we'd be happy to take your calls, but I promise you're not going to find anything dumber than I've got.
"40 years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind.
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
To sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
Oh, I'm excited. Not just because it's game week, not just because I get to go to New Orleans for the first time. I've never been to New Orleans. I'm excited to go. Got a couple of plans down there. Looking forward to covering the game at the Superdome. Never done a game at the Superdome. Should be an electric atmosphere. Love a good sports atmosphere, don't you? I think that might just be the subject of this week's Dumbest Thing in Sports.
Let's be honest. You've already seen something this week that made you say, "What the is this?"
That's bullshit.
What the hell? Give me some more now.
Something so mind-numbingly idiotic that you just want to get it off your chest.
Dumber than a second coat of paint.
Some idiot. You are really dumb. For real.
It's the dumbest thing in sports this week on the Buck Rising Show.
There's only one. There's only one answer. Lucas and I are both aligned. This thing, Charlie Burris, my colleague at A to Z Sports, is by far and away the dumbest thing in sports this week. A little A to Z on A to Z crime here. That's fine. I know Charlie's a big boy. He can handle it. I know he's in Nashville today. I hope you're listening, Charlie. May God have mercy on you. I award you no points. It's a tough scene. The Tennessee Vols, they were in Nashville this weekend. They set a record for the largest crowd at an athletic event in Nissan Stadium history, 69,507. Do you know, Lucas, the previous record for capacity at an athletic event at Nissan Stadium?
Was it set by Tennessee fans?
In fact, it was.
Was it the Music City Bowl?
In fact, it was. 2021, 69,489. So they've got both of the attendance records for sporting events at Nissan Stadium.
Wonder what the third is.
It's probably a Tennessee game.
2015 Bowling Green?
One would imagine. Listen, it's a big deal. It's awesome. Our friend Chad Withrow, he was at the game. He took a video. He posted it on Twitter. It was looked like from the north end zone concourse, and it was documenting the scene at Nissan Stadium. It's an 11 a.m. kick. They're not playing a tough opponent. It's Virginia. And the tweet says, when was the last time Nissan Stadium saw an atmosphere like this? This is what I hope for the Titans. And you know what? Chad's right. I'd love to see that atmosphere. I've seen it a couple times at Nissan Stadium. I'd love for it to be a part of my regular working environment. It's electric.
It's the best atmosphere you've seen at Nissan.
At Nissan, it was probably the
Bengals.
It was probably the Bills.
Monday Night Football.
The Monday Night Football game against the Bills was as good an atmosphere as I can remember. Bengals playoff game was up there, but of course, you know, that one was immediately ripped from your chest because he threw an interception on the first offensive play. So that one tempered. Kansas City, but there was a lot of Chiefs fans. A
lot of Bills fans, too.
A lot of Bills fans.
But that animosity also kind of energizes the environment.
Listen, I love everything about the Tennessee Vols fan base. I really do. I think it's so cool, the way that they support their teams, regardless of whether it's football, basketball. I love that their fans are passionate. I love that you're crazy. But when Chad tweets, this is what I hope for the Titans, I'm with him. I'd love to see that. I think it makes it so much more fun. Lucas was disappointed last year going to a bunch of NFL stadiums, seeing atmospheres that were maybe half as electric as what it is on a weekly basis at Neyland Stadium. Nobody is denying this fact. They're running through the tee. The crowd's fired up. It's 11 a.m. in the morning. You know how many noon games the Titans have this year? I want that environment at Nissan Stadium. I'm begging for it, please. But this is where Charlie is the dumbest thing in sports this week, all right? He takes it to an extreme unlike any other. Quote, if the Titans would take even the smallest effort to pander to Tennessee fans, they could get more of this, talking about the atmosphere. He says, instead, they prefer to spit in our faces. I cackled. I out loud cackled. I'm sitting at home by myself, looking at my phone. I out loud cackled reading that. That tweet is a form of cancer. And he speaks for a fair amount of people. Based on the replies, it doesn't make it right. Just because people agree with you doesn't mean that you're right. And the worst part of this tweet is Charlie is the most qualified person I know to have this opinion. He's from Knoxville. He grew up a Tennessee fan. He's a lifelong Titans fan. Nobody knows as much about their favorite teams as Charlie Burris, and I think he has some of the most unhinged opinions on the internet. I think he's insane.
For what it's worth, Charlie has said that spit in our faces was maybe a little overdramatic.
Don't care. Don't care. Too late. Too late.
I saw him follow that up in a reply to that tweet. Maybe spit in our faces was a bit much.
It's not even the spit in our faces thing. I'm not pandering to you if I'm any organization. I don't feel that way because he's saying that about the organization that I cover. It doesn't make any difference to me how many Titans fans root for the Vols. Doesn't make any difference to me how many Vols fans root for the Titans. I want more of that atmosphere. I want the thing that he's talking about. And like I said, I got a lot of respect for Vols fans. But to think that any organization, college, pro, basketball, football, whatever it is, would pander to the whims of a crazy person on the internet who's alleging that they spit in their faces because why? Where's the loogie, Charlie? Where is it? Because they drafted Levis over Hooker? Because they don't have as many titles as the University of Tennessee? Lucas, how many titles does the University of Tennessee claim?
6 national championships.
6 national championships. Do you know when the first game on record at the University of Tennessee was?
Sometime in the 19th century.
1891. Do you know, on average, 6 titles since 1891? Do you know how many years, on average, the University of Tennessee wins a title? Math.
Confused, A, by the question, because I'm not going to be able to do that math, and B, what that would have to do with this discussion.
The Titans have existed for 25 years. When was the last Vols title?
98.
25 years ago. The Titans have had down years as a product. I'm not arguing this. I have hated to watch them play football. Many of the years that I have covered them, they have been ugly at many points. The Vols have been ugly at many points, a lot of the time in that same span. The University of Tennessee, having played football since 1891 and winning 6 national championships in that span, means they're averaging a championship every 22 years. So Titans a little behind on that time frame, not by much. What do you want? You want them to be the Vols? They're not going to be. They haven't existed for 100 years. It's not in people's blood the way that the University of Tennessee is. They haven't been around as long. They don't have the title. I'm not arguing that they're as successful as a thing. I'm not arguing that they should matter as much to people in this state. But the idea that spit in your face is something that you're lobbing out there without any facts whatsoever to support your opinion. Do you feel like they didn't support you enough when the franchise first got here? Are you pissed because they used the name Tennessee instead of Nashville? That they're the Tennessee Titans in a state where the Tennessee Vols play? Because there's people out here who feel that way. Who's the best ambassador for the Tennessee Titans as a franchise? Across 25 years of Titans football.
Oh, Eddie George?
The answer is Mike Keith. Mike Keith is the best ambassador for the Titans franchise anywhere. He bends over backwards as an alumni of the University of Tennessee to bridge the gap between those two brands. Goes out of his way and makes sure the organization does. I'm looking at this and saying, if you're citing draft whims, if you're citing lack of outreach, if you're citing lack of what? You want Vols Titans merchandise to be shipped out to you? What do you want here?
Yeah, that would be my question. What you want? What do you want? And what is there an example of any franchise in this country that does this dual marketing? Are the Falcons doing anything to quote unquote pander to Georgia fans?
No, and it's not just because they're the NFL. It's nothing to do with the high and mightiness. The only high and mightiness anywhere in this conversation is the entitlement of that tweet. I don't want that in my fan base. If I'm a Vols fan, I don't want that in my fan base. If I'm a Titans fan, I'm an Indiana basketball fan, I don't want that level of entitlement anywhere near my fan base. I think that way of thinking is cancerous, and it spreads on the internet, and it's a perfect place for that to exist. It's the dumbest thing in sports this week by a mile. It may be the dumbest thing I've ever read on Twitter, and that's saying something.
We were getting some of this when the Titans drafted Levis. Like that was my dumbest thing in sports that week. Seeing the amount of not just Tennessee fans, but media members saying, if the Titans just a little bit more to appeal to this massive fan base. And I was so perplexed by it. I can't even fathom actually thinking that draft picks should be angled towards PR of winning over a contingent of people in your state.
If you do that, you're a bad football team.
That's insanity.
If you do that, you're a dumb organization. Like, fans matter. I'm not trying to discount fans. All right? Fans' passion matters. I know what it is to cover a football season without fans. I didn't realize how important you guys were to our day-to-day until you weren't there. It's a level of appreciation, especially having seen a game at Neyland against Florida, a game in which you won, and I got to witness that passion for myself. It was awesome. Awesome. It's not anything anti-fan here. It's anti-entitlement. And that the idea that is something that you would just openly traffic in and have a legitimate expectation and then wander around. It's like a sports version of QAnon. It's like giving the dude in the buffalo hat with the staff and the face paint at the Capitol building. It's like giving him the keys to your football organization. You broke through the window. Go ahead, bud. It's yours now. That's insane to me. Insane to me. Do you have a better dumbest thing in sports this week?
No, that would have been mine.
Okay.
I just want to know what do we want, right? Like, what do you want? Billboards? Titans/Vols merch? Like, I'm very confused on what the Titans could be doing more to appeal to the University of Tennessee's fan base. Tennessee's fan base is never going to love the Titans more than it loves the Vols. It's an ingrained generational thing, like you said, of well over 100 years of football. I just truly don't know what could be done to achieve the pandering that people seem to want.
The answer is nothing.
I can't even fathom what they could be doing.
Maybe they could have done a better job. Like, I wasn't here when the Titans first got here. I don't know what the relationship between Nashville and Knoxville, the Titans and Vols, like how they were trying to incorporate. I understand that it probably didn't go exactly the way the Vols fans might have wanted. Tough. Like, tough. I don't care. That doesn't give you a level of entitlement. Like, I don't care who your favorite pro team is. It makes no difference to me whatsoever who you root for. But the way in which you do it, I can't get over that. I can't. 615, I hope you guys have something better than what I just brought to the table. 615-737-1045. Chris Head says, guys, bring Charlie on the show and let him defend himself. I thought about that. I did. And to be honest, like, it's nothing against Charlie. Charlie and I are fine. It's just it's the tweet that I have the issue with. It's not Charlie. But like, I don't want to talk about this. Like, this is not a situation where everybody is entitled to their opinion. No, this is stupid. This is stupid. This is something that I don't want an explanation of why you feel that way. I know why you feel that way. I'm telling you, it's wrong. Get out of here. Out of here. I have no interest in fleshing that out any further. Maybe that makes me the bad guy in this. Don't really care. 615-737-1045 is how you nominate the dumbest thing in sports this week. Let's go to Pete in Murfreesboro first. Hey, Pete.
Hey, my dumbest thing in sports this week is whoever for the Titans organization made the shot call for they're doing something called Kicking for Kids. I'm not exactly sure what it's for, but some promotion to benefit kids in some sort of way for field goals. And we don't even have somebody that can kick it through the upright. So, those poor kids,
You have a kicker. The drama.
Come on, Pete.
That's funny.
It's kick childhood cancer.
Well, it's not
something
funny,
Nashville Soccer Club's doing with Cumulus Media.
Oh, it's the soccer thing.
Yeah.
Oh, he said, okay.
It was a bad attempt at humor by Pete.
Is that because you're voicing the ads for that?
It's more because it's about childhood cancer. That's probably more of what it's about.
Okay.
But yes, I have been lucky to be a part of that in some way. Kick Childhood Cancer. Check it out. It's a great cause.
Where's the website?
Kick Childhood Cancer Month. If you go to 1045thezone.com, there are things that you can bid on. There's a number that you can text to sign up to donate $10 a month or do a one-time flat fee of $120. So if you go to 1045thezone.com, it'll just pop up and it'll take you to where you need to go. This is Kick Childhood Cancer Month, the entire month of September. We're partnering up with the soccer team, Cumulus Media, all of our stations as a whole. A lot of really cool things going on. Let me track down the number that you can text to be a part of it and to sign up for monthly $10 donations that all go to Children's Hospital.
See, now, if not for his terrible joke, we wouldn't have got that plug-in.
Yes, that is true.
Well done by us. Johnny in Portland is next.
Can you hear me?
I sure can.
This is Johnny the Poet. Hey, listen, thanks for taking my call. By the way, good on you for that was a very classy professional plug of Chad Withrow, and that's really good on you to do that. And it's kind of in that vein that I'm making my point. Everybody knows that I'm a TCU alumnus. I talked a lot of smack before the game, and I'm eating that humble pie, and it's disgusting, and I hate it, and I'm actually really, really upset about Saturday, truly. However, after the game, after we got out-coached and outplayed and out-hustled, Coach Prime Sanders was coming off the field, and the TCU student section, many of them, flipping them off, dropping F-bombs. It's all over social media. I don't think it's kids just being kids. I think it's classless. I think it's Bush League. I'm thoroughly embarrassed to be a Horned Frog because of those kids. I'm not a violent guy. I'd like to open up a can of poetic whip, you-know-what, on those punks. But quite frankly, to be flipping off Coach Prime, saying F you right to his face, right in front of you, there's no room for that. In my opinion, that's the dumbest thing in sports, and shame on you, TCU students. I'm embarrassed right now. So, dumbest thing in sports. Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you, Johnny the Poet. I like that because it's in the same vein as mine. That's fan entitlement. I think there's always some kind of unhinged behavior that gets documented at college football games or at any of these sporting events, right? It's fans dumping popcorn on Russell Westbrook. It's dudes, flipping off or throwing golf balls at Lane Kiffin's head. It's, this could be identified in any fan base. But I like the self-awareness by Johnny to call out his own fan base. We need more of that. John in Murfreesboro next. Hey, John.
What's up, Buck? So I'm actually going to double down on your dumbest thing in sports. That was my dumbest thing in sports. I tagged it 3 days ago in Twitter. I said saving this one for Buck's dumbest thing in sports. But I'm going to hit it from a different angle, all right? Not only were they saying that the Titans should pander to Tennessee fans, there were a number, not just one, but a number of Tennessee fans who took to Twitter and said things like, Virginia's fixing to need another moment of silence because Tennessee's going to fold them like that .45 caliber did.
That's gross.
It not only is it the dumbest thing in sports, it's the cruelest thing in sports. I get that, we make jokes about UT a lot, and a lot of times they make jokes about themselves. But the fact that I didn't see anyone coming to call these people out, that's embarrassing.
I appreciate the call, John. It's like the Watson stuff with the Browns, and you got the guys out there tailgating the Browns game, and they've got like the massage tables out there, and they're cracking jokes and stuff like that. I mean, it's not. I mean, one situation lives were lost, and the other was not. So I'm not trying to draw parallels. I'm just saying there's tastelessness everywhere. Football is back. It also means that there is classless behavior everywhere across the football world that we can pull from.
Yeah, but I also doesn't mean we have to pull up the most inexcusable trash tweets from Vols fan 613 and then air it out to give them that oxygen.
I didn't know about that until he brought it up.
If anybody tweeted that, my hope is that it would be for an account with 2 followers that wants to say outrageous, stupid, trashy things, because that is obviously a disgusting thing that is the lowest bottom of the barrel portion of any fan base.
You think, and I'm sure this has happened, but it had never once considered or it had never once occurred to me that people would just make accounts up, like start an account just to tweet something like that and then leave the internet, right? Like burner accounts, but to an extreme. Just lob a social media grenade out there, let it gain traction, and then that was the only purpose for you creating that social media account that day. Like that's the kind of behavior that strikes me as. You're just trying to get somebody pissed off or fired up or get noticed, and you have the satisfaction of walking away from it and nobody having known that it was you, unless you're dumb enough to have it be tracked back to you.
But if we're talking about a really stupid notion from a portion of the Tennessee fan base that believes that the Titans should be quote-unquote pandering to the Vols fan base, which I think we're on the same page that is ridiculous.
Yes.
But, John, I guess what I don't get is calling in to follow up with that with, like, the lowest bottom of the barrel.
Oh, no.
like,
I don't want there to be a connection drawn
like,
between Charlie's thing and that.
Yeah.
No,
like,
no.
I think that is dumb. That is a horrific thing to say, but I don't know. I just usually, those are the things that the best way to deal with is block, ignore, move on. By the way, if you text KIT Cancer to 615-488-4401, you can join the KIT Club and help children fighting cancer in our region. That would be $10 a month or a one-time gift of $120 to help Monroe Carroll Jr. Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt battle childhood cancer.
Who called saying with the terrible kicker joke earlier?
Pete did.
All right, Pete, text what number?
It was 615. Oh, you're going to do that to me right as I closed it out. 615-488-4401. 488-4401.
All right, Pete, you specifically text that number to make up for your terrible joke.
Text KIT Cancer to that number.
Coming up next, the biggest jumps and falls in the second AP Top 25 poll. We'll do that coming up next. Got a new top 25 poll out after week one of the college football season. Who rose, who fell? We'll go through it here in just a second. We'll see how you guys feel about it. 615-737-1045. That's the number if you would like to join in. So, Georgia Bulldogs stay number one. Michigan Wolverines stay number two. Crimson Tide up a spot after shellacking Middle Tennessee 56-7. Florida State, one of the biggest and most notable risers in the new AP Top 25 poll. They had gone from 8 now to number 4 after smoking LSU 45-24. You have the University of Tennessee going from 12 to 9 with their decisive win over Virginia. Not their most clean performance, but still a lot of things to be excited about nonetheless. So they see some stock up in that situation. But for the most part, everybody in the top 10 looks like they held serve. Notre Dame went up to get into the top 10. Texas, Utah, Oregon, LSU now outside looking in.
Clemson plummets.
Yeah.
16 spots to the number 25 team in the country. Did that matchup in 3 weeks between Clemson and FSU get far less interesting with Clemson's loss to Duke?
Oh, I don't know how you could argue anything but.
Yeah.
I mean, they're clearly a flawed football team beyond just like the turnover situation. Their quarterback is the thing that I think was giving a lot of people reassurance. The Orange Bowl performance, not great, but okay, whatever. Now you come into this season with a full offseason to kind of settle into the system, the new system, and just kind of comes out, flat. I don't know how 28-7 against Duke, who you haven't lost to since 1989, could be described as anything but flat.
And, we were talking about debuts in the last hour, specifically in the SEC. You want to talk about debuts? DJU had a nice debut for Oregon State. Yes, it was against San Jose State, but he looked really good. And Clemson, Dabo did the thing that he hadn't really done, make an outside hire that was lauded. People praised the hire of Garrett Riley to come in as the offensive coordinator. Dabo obviously has not done that a lot in terms of going away from in-house hires to come in and call plays. So that was a highly praised hire, but people still leave week one thinking, okay, was that a DJU problem at Clemson or was that a Clemson problem at Clemson? Because DJ Uiagalelei got off to a nice start to life for Oregon State. That was last Friday, and I'm pulling up his numbers. DJ was 20 of 25, 239 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. So that's a question people are going to continue to ask down the stretch this season, but Colorado creeps in at number 22. They play Nebraska this week. 11 a.m. kickoff. Very intrigued by that game.
Well, me too, for different reasons.
What are your reasons?
I'm going to be have a self-harm watch on Will Compton throughout the course of that game. I'm worried about my friend.
Can Nebraska
He's got a lot of time now in retirement. I don't know what he might do.
Can Nebraska deal with Deion Mania in week 2?
So what is Deion Mania? Because you know what stood out to me about the game was on again yesterday. After I got home from work, it was just on. And for whatever reason,
the TCU Colorado game.
I just left FS1 on while I was sitting at home catching up on some work before I had a meeting. And you know what stood out to me about that game after rewatching it and removing myself from the highlight reel that was Travis Hunter and all the great throws that Shedeur Sanders was making? The degree of difficulty on the throws was not overwhelming. He was just making the right decisions.
Yep.
The thing that jumped off the screen to me about Colorado was not their overwhelming athleticism, but their discipline. They were not a mistake-riddled team. They were not Billy Napier in week 1, where it looks like they were having significant difficulties with operation. And the whole thing on Billy Napier is he's supposed to have his T's crossed and his I's dotted when it comes to those things on offense. I thought Deion Sanders fielded a competitive and disciplined football team. And why that's not a bigger talking point around Deion Sanders as a coach instead of, they did the unthinkable. It's a miracle. Look at Colorado. Rather than, I think they outcoached TCU, who was in the national title game last year. And also, Travis Hunter is clearly a freak. That helps.
It's easy to get distracted by Deion, though.
Sure.
Right? Like, Deion makes you get distracted by Deion. They're the loudest program in college football right now. We come in, my luggage is Louis. They were 1-11 a year ago, and they're doing something. They're flipping a roster in a way that nobody has. Like, we talked about it. Lincoln Riley kind of did this. Lincoln Riley has sort of started this new age of patience kind of going out the window with new coaching regimes in college football. Deion is going all the way with it. Like, what Lincoln did is not what Deion has done. Completely flipping that roster. Like an 80-90% flip of that roster. And Deion is doing it in the most Deion way possible.
He's loud.
Primetime way possible.
That's fine.
So, yeah, people aren't going to pay attention to the little things, to penalty yardage, right? To the way that Colorado manages certain in-game situations. It's going to be about the hype and Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter.
That's wrong. It's a flaw. That's outright wrong, because if it's distracting from people from the idea that he's actually a good coach, and people think that Deion Sanders is just getting these jobs because he's Deion Sanders, there's a degree of that. Deion Sanders probably doesn't get in the door the way that most people do. But also, let it not distract from the fact that he appears to be a legitimately good coach.
Yeah, I think he's disproving that in the process. Now, what everybody's going to be fascinated to see with Colorado is there any sort of regression to the mean in week 2? Does TCU just not have it this year, right? I mean, they replaced a lot of bodies defensively. They're clearly short on speed. Is Nebraska going to be a little bit more physical up front with Colorado? That's a Colorado defense that gave up a lot of yards and a lot of points to TCU. Can Nebraska get right on offense facing that group? The game is at Colorado. It's going to be an amazing environment. Tickets to get into that game are insane. 11 a.m. Central kickoff. So Texas-Alabama is the biggest game of week 2.
Yeah.
Colorado-Nebraska has to be right there at 2 or 1B. Because of how fascinated everybody is by the Deion experience right now.
Well, now wait. Did you watch Texas?
I watched some of Texas Rice, yes.
Did you not have Ohio State vibes off of Texas?
Yeah,
I kind of did.
But then what are we doing? Are we making season-long proclamations?
No. I'm just saying the game of week.
Out of the gate?
I'm just saying the game of week 2. Texas doesn't look like I think we should, not that expectations had them looking, but like they should look better than that.
Yeah. They didn't, like our friend Josh Pate always says, you don't lose to food. They didn't lose to food. They didn't lose to rice, but they played with their food. It's a little slow to start.
You don't lose to food.
See what the environment in Tuscaloosa does in that regard.
Okay, so yeah, nobody's going to argue truly that is not the game of the week. I mean, let's see what's on the board here.
Rice quarterback JT Daniels, by the way.
Ooh, Texas A&M, Miami?
Yes. No, those are the big 3. It's Alabama, Texas A&M, Miami,
and then Ole Miss Tulane is a ranked game.
And Nebraska, Colorado.
Yeah.
Rounds out the top 3 of that weekend.
Okay. I'm fascinated to see what Texas looks like this weekend. I'll be watching that game from New Orleans. Speaking of Titans and Saints, Treylon Burks gives us an update on his health. That's coming up next.
It is 12:02. Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans on the practice field this afternoon, leading into the Week 1 kickoff at the New Orleans Saints on Sunday. Ryan Tannehill met with the media less than an hour ago talking about breaking in a new offense under play caller Tim Kelly here in Week 1.
It's a little bit different than the last offense, obviously. You know, some new concepts, some new protections, new ideas that we haven't had in the past. So that's been a fun process for me of getting on board with those and making those part of what we do and owning them. So happy with how things have gone throughout training camp and excited to transition it into the season.
As Week 1 turns to Week 2 in college football, the AP poll came out on Tuesday with Tennessee moving up 3 spots and into the top 10. Vols are now the number 9 team in the country. Head coach Josh Heupel did say today that linebacker Keenan Peely has suffered an injury, will miss multiple weeks, though Heupel does not believe the injury to be season-ending. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's already the final hour. What happened? Moving quick today. Happy to have you. Last chance to get in on the phones or via the F&M Bank chat. 615-737-1045. That's the number. You've got also Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch where you can live stream all 4 shows 5 days a week. Depending on who you ask about the Tennessee Titans heading into 2023, feels like a wide range of responses. I've got people telling me that this is a playoff team, definitively. I've got people saying that this is a team that can make a playoff run. I've got others in my life who I feel like are convinced that this is a team that will be picking, if not inside the top 10, inside the top 5. And I don't know how you could have a more wide-ranging spectrum than the one that it feels like we're walking into this season with. So now it becomes, all right, what variables are going to impact their trajectory somewhere between Super Bowl champion and top 3 draft pick, right? Well, Bill Barnwell on ESPN.com laid out the case for all 32 teams, a case for each club to make the Super Bowl, and we'll get into that a little later on. But one of these things that's going to impact the Titans' successes or failures this year is Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks, who was hurt in the Minnesota joint training camp practices, was an LCL sprain. Mike Vrabel called it best case scenario, given what they thought they saw on the field, given the fact that he had to be carted off. Go through some time. He doesn't play in the preseason. You get to the first practices after training camp. They had 2, and Treylon Burks is out there. He's available. He's going through individual. They shut us down for our viewing purposes after the first 20, 25 minutes of practices, but he's out there. He's doing all the things that he needs to do. He doesn't have a brace on it. So, great. Feel pretty good about Treylon Burks. So now with Week 1 officially on the table, is he going to be available against the New Orleans Saints as this team tries to get off the mat? Well, let's hear from Treylon Burks as to how he's feeling ahead of the Saints game.
Last week, it's been going good. Just doing exactly what I can to get out there and play Sunday. You know, that's what I'm keep doing.
You going full speed?
I'm going at the pace, a pretty good pace. You know, so we'll see what I am by Sunday.
Optimistic?
No, you just wait to see.
What's it feeling like for you going into year 2 compared to this time last year?
It's definitely, I'm more, I would say, confident. I'm not stressing about the little things anymore. Level-headed and, just hoping that I can get out there.
Just the overall feel of the team, what's the confidence level like? Maybe not only offense, but the whole team.
I would say it's really good. We attack each day like like we're supposed to, like Braves, asked us to do, and it shows on and off the field, and we're just gonna keep doing that.
I know he's not saying much, and he's being told not to say much.
Not conceding anything.
What are you conceding, bud? Not a thing. I feel like Treylon Burks can be available.
Little smirk when he kind of gave you just have to wait and see.
So we'll have an injury report first of the season today, somewhere between 2 and 4 o'clock.
What is your official prediction for Treylon Burks' status on the injury report?
God, questionable.
Yeah, me too.
Arden Key, questionable. But listen, worth noting that Arden Key has also missed some time out there at practice. The last time I saw Arden Key was on a bike. So, situations worth monitoring ahead of week 1. There's going to be something that by the time we get to Friday and we're out there with Mike Vrabel and somebody inevitably asks the question that he hates, who you ruling out, Mike? And he snorts and gives you, I don't want to say a name because I don't know, but like gives you a player that you didn't expect to miss the game, right? And then everybody's going to be up in arms and week 1's already a disaster and the Titans are going to lose the Saints, everything, right? All of it, all at once, right there because Mike Vrabel said so. So there will be a moment like that probably on Friday. And I don't know who that's going to be. I don't know how it's going to hit you. But I feel like the only thing that I can confidently predict is that by Friday there's going to be some kind of a freak out about something.
Okay, so what do we definitively know when it comes to injuries with the Titans?
Kyle Phillips is not available for at least 4 weeks.
Yeah. That's it, right? I mean, Arden Key, Treylon Burks will monitor throughout the course of this week. But otherwise, training camp.
I'm going to assume that Dylan Radins is not available.
Yeah.
I think I can say that with great confidence that Dylan Radins is not going to be available to be a reserve in this game. I think it's a little premature for that.
Did you see where Radins landed on the depth chart?
No, I did not actually.
Radins on the Titans official depth chart, named September 4th, so 2 days ago, is listed as the backup at both right tackle and right guard. Right tackle and right guard.
They refused to let him play the left side.
Radins is the 2 for both. Backup Daniel Brunskill and the backup for Chris Hubbard.
It's so fun. I don't, maybe funny is the wrong word, but like he seems to be all but begging to play on the left side, and they're just like, nope, you got to figure it out on the right side.
Jalen Duncan, backup left tackle. Xavier Newman, backup left guard. Corey Levin, backup center. According to the unofficial depth chart.
Correct. Which also has or next to the backup quarterback situation.
And is on the team's official website.
Always worth noting.
What makes it unofficial?
Not a damn thing other than they put the word at the top of it and say, no, that's the unofficial depth chart. Okay. Because you know what makes it unofficial? It's fake. They have the real one. They won't tell us the real one. This one's a fake.
Fake. It's fiction. It's not real.
What is that from? Is that X-Files?
Is that X-Files?
It always cracks me up, the meme. The
fiction.
The compilation. We should have that as a drop, just existing back there, floating around in the background.
Doesn't exist. Yeah.
That or that mother bleeper's not real, whichever one you decide. She is on a whole PR tour, by the way. She's an influencer now.
Crazy plane lady.
Genius marketing strategy.
Yeah, good for her.
Yeah, I suppose. So with Treylon Burks, though, optimism, I think, is allowed for you who would be hopeful about his availability in this game. Now, we'll see how the week progresses. They will have wrapped up the open portion of practice by now. They would have been out on the practice field, so I think they're going to be done about 12:55 today. That's when you'll start to see updates, attendance, who did what, videos, and things of the like coming out from St. Thomas Sports Park. So keep an eye out for that. His impact, though, on this football team, I mean, they've got 2 second-year players who are as important to the success of this football team as any players on this roster. They're both in year 2. It's Treylon Burks on the offense. It's probably McCreary on the defense. Roger McCreary and his availability, his willingness to play multiple positions in their defense or in their secondary, the steps that those 2 are capable of taking, I think is going to those are the 2 things that I would look that I'm buying stock in. I'm buying stock in Roger McCreary. I'm buying stock in Treylon Burks in year 2.
Yet you are far more confident about the depth at corner than you are at tight end, are you not? Whereas Chigakonkwo going into year 2 has to kind of carry that tight end room in a way. Where I don't think you could say that about Roger McCreary.
No. So you would value, your argument is for Chig over McCreary as being a more impactful, not, they're all important, right?
Yeah.
They need to succeed. In fact, I mean, we could do a segment on this later in the week if you want to. You're still leaning a lot on John Robinson draft picks for as easy a target as that guy is. You need his picks to work.
My argument is that tight end depth is much more of an issue than corner depth. And if Chigakonkwo were to go down, you're very concerned about what your tight end room can offer. Whereas if you were to lose Roger McCreary for a week or two, at this point, I feel like you feel okay about the depth at corner.
So you don't think that Chig is survivable if he were to miss a week or two in that scenario? Like, I think they can game plan. I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm not saying that I'm not saying that you're wrong, by the way. Just by that logic, like, I'm gonna lean on the play caller a little bit. Hey, figure it out. You don't have Chig this week. Okay, figure it out. You still got Treylon, and in this hypothetical, you still got Hopkins, you still got Henry. Figure it out. I think there's more on the offense to take more pressure. The whole reason that I was skeptical of the Titans heading into this year pre-Hopkins, because you're asking so much of so many second-year players. NPF pre-suspension, Treylon Burks, Chigakonkwo, Kyle Phillips on your offense when there's as much scrutiny on that offense as humanly possible. Then Hopkins comes in. I don't know that he's the savior of everybody, but he makes life a hell of a lot easier. And just to have that burden removed from those guys to allow them to play more freely, I think is what you're trying to accomplish. So we'll hear from Ryan Tannehill coming up next, his press conference ahead of Saints Week. We can also talk about teams who we feel like are most likely to rebound in 2023. We'll explain what the parameters for the rebound are coming up next. Ryan Tannehill spoke to the media earlier. Titans on the practice field right now. Spent a lot of time, a lot of airspace talking about offense, talking about offensive ingenuity and how much more could Tim Kelly bring to the proceedings than did his predecessor. So with that in mind, okay, Tannehill, how are you feeling about the offense right now, and specifically how you guys are going to incorporate this tempo we keep hearing so much about?
Tempo is a part of what we do. It's something that we can use to try to create an advantage, get the defense on their heels, go in and out of it. We'll see how much we end up using it this week and following weeks, but it's definitely a tool that we like to keep in our back pocket and be able to use.
So all NFL teams should. He's not saying anything that's revolutionary there. Teams deploy tempo at a variety of different times, whether that's 2-minute, whether that's 4-minute, whether they're huddling. You can huddle and still play with tempo. Like tempo it's almost like analytics. Like I feel like people just cast out a giant wide net of analytics and say anything math related, that's now analytics. Tempo means different things. So more specific questions about tempo would probably lead to more productive answers. So pace of play, though, plays per game. If I made you guess how many plays per game the Tennessee Titans had in 2022, what would your answer be?
How many plays per game?
All right, so let me give you the average.
I was going to say, give me the league average first.
League average, 63.5.
That's the NFL average in 2022?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to say the Titans say 52.
Well, that would have put them dead last by 5 points. Carolina, lowest, 32 out of 32, 57.4. Tennessee, 31, 58.4.
So second to last.
Second to last.
With 58 plays per game.
So you are correct in that they were low. Now we're not looking at plays per minute the way that you do with Tennessee. I think that evaluation doesn't translate as well to the world of the NFL. I don't think people are looking for that kind of pace of play necessarily. Like, you do want to be able to play fast. You want to be able to keep the opponent on their heels and play with tempo, with pace. But plays per minute, the way that we track with Tennessee, is like, 2.99 or something outrageous?
But it's funny the arc that we've gone on when it comes to the tempo with the Tim Kelly offense, because it defines so much of the conversation we had in the offseason, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chikakonkwo stepped up to the podium. Man, this offense is really fast. Treylon Burks stepped up, and it reminds me of Kendall Briles and the offense we ran at Arkansas. And then here's Tannehill a few days before the game. Like, yeah, we'll use tempo sometimes when it behooves us.
Okay, what's the difference between the two people that you just mentioned and the third guy?
A couple of guys coming off their rookie year.
About 10 years of NFL experience is the difference between. Yeah, we're gonna go faster. No, they're going faster because they expect them to go faster, and because you've been in the NFL for a year and you know time to pick it up a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, I almost feel like that, and I probably forgot it as much as anybody else did when they first started saying it, because I'm like, oh, that's interesting. He's comparing it to Kendall Briles. That's not what I associate with Tennessee Titans offensive football. What are you talking about there? And then, to kind of boil it down, it's like, oh, yeah, you're going faster now, bud. Moving a little quicker. Now, I don't know necessarily that we're going to are we looking for the Titans to have more plays per game necessarily? No. I don't think that's like a metric that I'm going to grade them on at the end of the year. Like, I'm not looking at that 31. You don't want to be last in the league in any category, basically. So for them to be, 31 out of 32, not what you want. But I think that if you're looking for an evaluation of Tim Kelly to start, third down conversions leading to general sustainability of offense and red zone success. What do we know about the Titans under Mike Vrabel? They kill it in the red zone.
Yeah. Even last season.
What do we know about the Titans under Todd Downing? They don't get to the red zone very often. So their red zone percentage is good, still good under Todd Downing. Todd Downing, by the way, part of the reason that he got the OC job is because under Arthur Smith, Todd Downing was help coming up with their red zone packages. Their red zone playbook, Todd Downing had a big hand in. One of the most successful offenses, the most successful offense that this franchise has had in 25 years of Titans football, 2020, Todd Downing was a big part of making that thing go. Now, did it work as a play caller? No. And you readjust as a result. But their success in the red zone with some different personnel on the staff, how this staff ultimately works, because you got a run game coordinator, you got a pass game coordinator, you got an offensive coordinator, you've got all kinds of analysts now. How that streamlines, or if you are able to streamline that with more hands involved or more voices involved, what that looks like. We asked Mike about that. I think it was the Monday after the final preseason game, and basically the conversation was, thank you, Rhett. Handed me my credential for New Orleans. Appreciate Rhett Bryan of Titans Radio. But basically, like, how this had gone operationally. Tim's on the sidelines. He plans to be on the sidelines. It sounds like he gets a better feel for calling plays down there. Bowen is going to stay in the booth. He's been in the booth. That's a function that seems to work well with Shane Bowen. Actually, no, Bowen started in the booth. I don't know if he's still calling defense from the booth. That's a good question. I need to. We'll talk. I'll talk to Shane Bowen. I guess that's tomorrow that we're going to talk to them. So we'll have some clarity for you on that tomorrow. Either way, the sustainability of the offense is the biggest metric that I need to see them exceed this year. And obviously to score more points than 17.1 a game. You can't exist in today's NFL with that kind of an offense. Second half offense. You want to hold them up to anything that was just paltry last year. Their inability to get it together in the second half of games, which was wild because they were as successful as any offense in football on scoring on their initial drives for a good part of the season. And then that tailed off after that was a big part of the 7-3, and then started to tail off a little bit, not become as reliable, and still the second half struggles continued. 615-737-1045 is the number. That also relies upon the offensive line having success. And Ryan Tannehill was asked about first-round pick Peter Skoronski today at the podium. This was his response. What? What happened?
I don't have it is what happened.
What do you mean you don't have it? It's in the grid.
I hit a button, and then something happened, and then it didn't happen, and now it's happened.
Yeah, Peter's steady Eddie, man. He comes to work each and every day and does his job. I can think back to spring, just watching some one-on-one reps with him and Jeff, kind of battling it out. And, you watch those reps and you kind of get a good feeling in your gut, and as you see training camp go on, he's just steady. He's out here, he's improving, he's working hard each and every day and doing exactly what we ask him to.
About as good a review as you can hear from a veteran quarterback about a first-round offensive lineman.
Is Peter Skoronski the singular player that we have the most confidence in on that offensive line? Like, are we most confident in the rookie that's never played an NFL snap?
I think I've been saying that for months.
That's crazy. Think about that.
I mean maybe it's now more real for you because it's week one, but I feel like I've been saying that for weeks.
Yeah, and it's a credit to Skoronski, but
no, it's also
it can be both.
Yeah, both things can be so. It can be good work by Peter
and the level of concern with
and
this
also
unit as a whole.
Side eye about the entire offensive line experience right now.
But he's the one that we've kind of skipped over throughout this entire process and said, he's gonna be fine.
The hallmark of a good offensive lineman, you don't talk about them. Like Lawan can be a good offensive lineman, but he got talked about a lot because he's loud. Peter's not that. I don't think he's not a mute by any sense of the imagination. I thought he was one of our more comfortable and relaxed and conversational interviews that we did during training camp. He seemed really at ease is the word.
Yep.
So that he seems as relaxed as one can be in that situation while still maintaining a level of competitiveness that is good to see against the likes of Jeffrey Simmons, Danico Autry, Tier Tart, Harold Landry, Arden Key. Again, he got during training camp. He will get got on Sunday. I can promise you that there will be moments where Cam Jordan and Dennis Allen is the Saints head coach. And is Dennis Allen calling defensive plays for them this year?
Yes. For the Saints, yeah.
Yes. They will have things to try and make us feel a little less confident in a rookie offensive lineman in week one, I can assure you. but I do think that he is the most reliable thing about their offensive line right now. Brewer second. I'm not far off with Brewer. I completely admit I came in with heavy skepticism about starting Aaron Brewer on an offensive line again after seeing last year's results. Even as I understand that, like, from a technical standpoint, like, you go back and watch Brewer at guard, he's got the ability to execute what they're trying to do. The problem is he's 200. I mean, they say he's 280 pounds. I haven't seen him weigh, so we'll go with what they say. But him at center, you can mitigate the size disadvantages more, and the technical prowess is how he makes up for it, and that is an area in which he excels. So that, I think, are two positives about the offensive line experience. You know, 2/3 ain't bad given last year, but I do think the thing that what's the thing that you have most in question about the offensive line? Like, of the five?
Right tackle.
Hubbard more than Brunskill.
Yeah.
Is there a reason?
Not necessarily. I mean, they're both a concern, but I guess the fluidity of the situation at right tackle.
Okay, but it doesn't seem terribly fluid, does it? I mean, it seems to have been Chris Hubbard's job since they bounced Jamarco Jones.
Until week 6, and then there's no guarantee that Nicholas Petit-Frere comes in and just reclaims that. I don't think we could say Petit-Frere had a great training camp.
No, or a great preseason. Yeah. Objectively, and by the way, last year, like Nicholas Petit-Frere, if you assessed him along the lines of every other offensive lineman, NPF would be viewed as a bad offensive lineman. So, and I'm not saying that Hubbard's great, but the whole reason that George Fant didn't sign here is because he thought he could keep that starting right tackle job, and he wanted more money to be able to do so, which is now what's played out in Houston, because their offensive line situation sounds like a bit of a mess.
Yeah, I would say Hubbard definitely over Dillard, because I feel like Dillard is athletic enough to at least be in the right spot. I don't know that Andre Dillard is going to be a sure thing at left tackle. I definitely have concerns about that. And when you hear people talk about Andre Dillard at left tackle, people that pay attention and watch tape on offensive linemen, they're not necessarily optimistic. But I feel like he's athletic enough to where he's going to be able to manage in certain situations. I don't know that about Chris Hubbard.
And I'll tell you why Brunskill's more concerning to me. The right side is concerning. Brunskill is more concerning to me because the pressure gets there faster in the interior. And the way that I saw that dude getting wheeled back into Malik a couple of times throughout the course of the preseason is kind of indicative of what I know Daniel Brunskill to be across his NFL career, which is a veteran who can play 5 different positions and is not necessarily great or even good at necessarily any of them. Doesn't mean he's a bad player. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have value. Doesn't mean that he can't get through a season as a starting player for you. He did so in San Francisco. But seeing that dude get put on skates throughout the course of the preseason and knowing that the pressure gets there faster from the inside than it does from the edge, I think Brunskill's a bigger issue for me.
Bringing back the run left hats?
Yeah, but Dillard's not a run blocker like that.
Still feel better about the left side than you do the right.
Okay, bud.
Do you not? Is that not literally what you just said?
Because Skoronski exists there, yes.
Yes.
Elsewhere, rebound candidates in 2023. So the Titans technically fit this category. Now, we did over-unders yesterday. Lucas and I both took the under. 7.5 for the Titans is the over-under according to CBS Sportsline. And Jags at 10. Titans second at 7.5. Colts and Texans at the bottom, 6.5 apiece. I said 8. Lucas tried to argue with me that 8 wasn't enough, even though we both hit the over. It was funny for me to listen back to some of that. Just I said the same thing as you did, and you didn't seem to think that that 8 was enough for you.
Enough for the Titans?
Enough for the Titans, yes.
Yeah. Because 8 is a losing season. I don't think this team will have a losing record this season.
Okay. So then you look at rebound candidates. Titans, obviously a good one. 7-win football team last year, 7 straight losses to end the season. But are they the best of the 2023 rebound candidates? So who fits this qualification? As you look at the NFL teams who had their various struggles, I think that the probably easiest way to do this is just to do one from every division. So let's start with the AFC North. Bounce back candidate in the AFC North is the Baltimore Ravens or the Cleveland Browns?
The Pittsburgh Steelers.
But they had a winning season again last year.
Yeah.
It was short of where they typically are.
Does it have to be a team that had a losing season in 2022? Because I think Pittsburgh, who had to fight and scrape and claw their way to 9-8 and just missed the playoffs.
No, I just think you're making a heavier lift on yourself if you're going to argue for Steelers over Ravens or Browns. I think, personally.
It's just the trust in Mike Tomlin, and Kenny Pickett has had a fantastic training camp and a fantastic preseason.
Well, sure, but the exercise is not who do you trust most in the division. The exercise is who is most capable of bouncing back here.
Yes, the team that I trust the most at head coach.
I would say that Harbaugh fits that description for me. Baltimore, again, you want to talk about overcoming injury. Baltimore is kind of in the same boat that the Titans are. They have experienced just as much, and their quarterback has missed more time than Ryan Tannehill has, and that's been a situation that they've had to try and work through. Baltimore, I'm more confident in bouncing back than I am the Browns. I think the Deshaun Watson thing is a science experiment until it's not, and I reserve my right to be skeptical of him until I see him play high-level NFL quarterback again. So I'm more confident in the Ravens than I am in the other teams in the AFC North. To have a bounce back, Titans, Colts, Texans can all fit this category. The Titans are probably the team that you trust most to be able to bounce back out of that division.
But which team do you trust most to take a bigger leap?
Houston. And I don't know why I'm doing that.
You trust Houston to take a bigger leap from 3 wins than you do Jacksonville to take a leap from 9.
Oh, yeah.
You are crazy low on the Jags.
No, I think I'm just fine on the Jags.
No, I think you're insanely low on the Jags. You said 10 was too.
I thought 10
was too high for
I
an
think 10 is like
total.
10 to me is the max. Like, that's as far as I'm willing to go for Jackson. Did you watch their defense last year?
Like, I understand.
Buddy, they're awful.
I understand that Trevor Lawrence is not there yet, but to me, all the evidence is there that he's going to be.
Yeah, but he can be undone. Patrick Mahomes can be undone by a bad defense. They have a bad defense in Jacksonville.
That's a team that played the back half of the season like a contender. I mean, the back half of what we saw from Jacksonville last season, I feel like is more of what you're going to see in 2023.
My sample size of them playing the back half as a contender is Trevor Lawrence missing layup touchdown throws against the Titans and them needing a bailout call to win a game.
Sure, that's the one game that you were at.
My sample size of Trevor Lawrence is throwing 4 interceptions in the first half of a game and then the Chargers bailing Trevor Lawrence out in the playoff game. I've seen, Lucas, I promise you, I've seen plenty of Jags football.
What do you expect from Trevor Lawrence this year?
I expect him to be a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. I don't think that's an unreasonable expectation. I'm just not voting the dude MVP.
I'm not voting the dude MVP either.
But you are overcompensating for the Jacksonville defense because of Trevor Lawrence in such a way that I feel is not a fair characterization of where they're at right now. We talk about Treylon Burks and Roger McCreary and Chig and all the second-year players that the Titans have that need to take a step up. Trayvon Walker as a first overall pick is wildly underwhelming.
Yeah.
Their best pass rusher last year, they let walk to the division. They Danico Autry'd it. It's like the Colts and Danico Autry. They let him go to the Titans. That's a mistake. I want to know who's getting after the quarterback this year because if Trayvon Walker's rookie year is anything that I'm, looking at, because financially they did not have the resources to go in and really patch that thing back together. They paid a couple of guys, but their money in the offseason was spent trying to further support Trevor Lawrence. And by the way, should be. But that's not enough for me to ignore the defense. I think I don't think I'm high on the Jags. I don't think I'm low on the Jags. I think I'm just right on the Jags. And, any argument beyond that, I think is projection that we don't have the sample size to make.
The Jags in that run after starting 2-6, going 7-2 after their return from London last season, posted a turnover margin of +7 through that stretch. Lawrence did have a bad performance in the first half of the game against the Chargers. Mm-hmm. The Chargers had a lot of moments that handed that game to the Jags.
Mm-hmm.
But I really think that this offense, a lot hinges on Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd, too, right? The second-year linebacker. A lot hinges on the younger guys making a second-year leap in that defense.
Devin Lloyd, who got benched last year.
Yeah.
I swear to you, I'm as high on Trevor Lawrence. Well, maybe not as high on Trevor Lawrence as everybody else seems to be because I have people, I listen to credible people out there in NFL media talking about Trevor Lawrence as an MVP candidate. And listen, if you told me by the end of the year, like if you told me today that by the end of the year the Jacksonville Jags would have a top 10 offense, I probably wouldn't argue with you. I don't think I would argue that Jacksonville's not going to have a top 10 offense this year. I think that Calvin Ridley makes a lot of sense with him. I think that there's a lot of things to like on the offense. My question mark about Jacksonville is the defense, in the same way that Tennessee's question mark is the offense for me. In fact, I'm more skeptical of the Jags defense than I am the Titans offense right now. That may just be because I cover the Titans closer. Last call for phone calls, if you got them. 615-737-1045 is the number. We'll do that. We'll update some polls, get you over to Blaine and Mickey coming up next. I do love this song. I'm cracking up, though, because I'm reading the F&M Bank chat. We've been accused, Lucas, by several people of doing a record prediction bit. And I think they're right. I think that's as hypocritical as we've been in 3 years of doing this show almost. You are correct. Shame on us. It won't happen again. Last call for phone calls if you got them. 615-737-1045. You hear that Travis Kelce may miss the Chiefs opener, the season opener, in just one sleep? One more sleep until we have NFL football on our televisions. Praise be. Chiefs hosting the Lions. Are the Lions a television draw like that?
People are hyped about the Lions this year.
We talked about making the leap candidates and then we're accused of record predictions. But if you want to talk about teams that I'm selling stock on before the season, I'd sell my Lions stock. They were fun. I'm sure they'll still be frisky. They missed the playoffs. They caused Aaron Rodgers some problems at the end of the year, which was funny. But to try and talk me into Jared Goff doing that again as one of the most efficient quarterbacks in football last year, and Ben Johnson coming back, not taking a head coaching job, or maybe not getting a head coaching job, but their offensive coordinator there, I just think that I would short Lions in the way that a lot of people are buying various NFL teams who are preparing for a rebound this year. I am curious to see, though, what that offense looks like without Travis Kelce. When's the last time Travis Kelce missed legitimate time? I struggle to go back. I'd have to go look. We could pull up his Pro Football Reference game logs. But that offense, it was like Tyreek Hill didn't matter for the Chiefs last year. Now, they gutted it out in a fair amount of one-score games, and they lost games that they shouldn't have, the way that all NFL teams do, like the Colts, and then ultimately went on to win the Super Bowl. But the leading receiver for that football team is Travis Kelce. And Detroit, while their defense was super inconsistent last year, I would want some kind of safety valve if I'm Patrick Mahomes going up against Aiden Hutchinson in week 1. Let's do some polls before we get you over to Blaine.
Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. The polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. It's the segment where bias takes over and nuance goes to die. Now, here's your favorite Buck Rising Show correspondent, Lucas Pan. Make that poll Zika.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on any non-specialty. New Ford. What's the dumbest thing in sports this week? V-Love says it is Riley Leonard's professor not giving him an extension on that homework assignment that he was late on because he was busy leading Duke to an upset win over Clemson Monday.
Okay, did you watch the clip from the professor, his explanation?
I'm with the professor on this one.
I'm with the professor.
Yep, your teammates got it in on time.
I stand with the professor. If your teammates got it done, if the offensive lineman got it done, I'm not like, you're just because you're the quarterback? Bleep out of here.
Nope. Everybody is ganging up on this guy, too. Hey, this is Duke, man. They're not messing around and pushing transcripts around at Duke. You got to turn your stuff in on time.
What's the name of the quarterback?
Riley Leonard.
Does Riley Leonard have a pro career in his future?
Oh, I don't know. Riley Leonard's a really good player.
Okay, fine. Either way, turn in your homework on time.
Yeah. So the O-lineman got it in early, Leonard. You could have got it in early. Buddy.
The idea that people are caping up for that, dude. No, you go to Duke. Anyway.
Who will be the most improved team in the NFL in 2023? Karen says, how about the Bears?
Oh.
Matt Eberflus got to get that defense right.
And Justin Fields has to really hone it in as a passer this year, which is crazy because I did not feel like passing prowess was something that I doubted Justin Fields on in college. Did you? Like, they threw the ball plenty at Ohio State.
I did not consider Fields coming out as just a running quarterback, and he's got to figure out how to throw in the NFL.
Which makes me question coaching, because then I'm just thinking, all right, is that just the way you're choosing to use him because you can't figure him out? That is the biggest question for the Bears for me.
What are your 2023 expectations for Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks? Kenneth says Pro Bowl. Caleb says 70 catches, 950 yards, and 6 touchdowns. Karen says, for God's sake, stay healthy.
Yeah, that one.
How would you grade Rand Carthon's first offseason as the Titans general manager? Kenneth says B+. The Will Levis pick and the Byard mess keeps it from being an A to him.
B-. I think on the whole, B- is fine. You were up against it. You did the best that you could given the circumstances. Did you do the best possible job given all the scenarios presented to you? Probably not. So B- is fine.
Who had the best SEC debut in week 1? 40% say Bobby Petrino. 25% say Auburn quarterback Peyton Thorne. Didn't expect that. 22% say Devin Leary from Kentucky. Only 13% think Carson Beck from Georgia.
Dawn must have retweeted the poll if we had that much percentage in favor of Auburn.
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Back at it tonight with A to Z Sports Prime Time. We will tell you Bill Barnwell's case for the Titans to win, not just make, but win Super Bowl 58. Look forward to that. Christian Fulton's on the radio show tomorrow. Have a great rest of your afternoon. I know you will, because Blaine and Mickey are up next.